Hey y'all, hi. I haven't filmed one of these in a long time and I'm so excited to do it. I'm going to be building my own eyeshadow palette out of single eyeshadows. Lately, when I've done this, I've done it by looking at a picture of a palette that's new to the market, or in most cases, two different palettes that are new to the market, and basically making my own version of those palettes. So I've been building my own palette out of my own single eyeshadows to use instead of buying new palettes. And today, I'm basically doing the same thing, but instead of looking at a specific palette or two specific palettes, I'm just remembering that the last time I made a video about new makeup releases, I observed that there's a bunch of rose-themed makeup coming out right now. I think I was looking at the Natasha Denona mini and some ColourPop stuff, and there were a couple of other rose-colored or rose-themed makeup items in that video, and then since I talked about it on camera, I've gotten a bunch of DMs and tags showing more either rose-themed or rose-colored makeup. So I'm gonna build my own little rose palette. It's going to be condensed, it's going to be small, it's going to just be in this little tiny magnetic palette, which is an old Nabla palette. And it's going to be my understanding of rose, or what I want in a rose themed palette. Spoiler alert, it's probably going to be grungy rose eyeshadow themed. If you are new to my channel and you're not subscribed, I hope that you will consider subscribing to my channel if you enjoy this video while you're watching it. I really like filming these kinds of overhead videos. It's not all I do, but it is a consistent style of video on my channel. Now, let's go ahead and get into the meat of this video. This is the last palette that I made, and I didn't build this on camera. I put it together as an example of the eyeshadows that I've really been enjoying using over the past year. So this was my eyeshadow in the best of beauty for 2021 that I filmed. And even though my heart leapt with excitement when I opened this, I'm kind of tempted to conspicuously omit all of these eyeshadows from the palette that I build today to kind of challenge myself to push outside of the zone in which I have been hanging out. Because I actually think that there's a strong argument for this as a grungy rose palette. Like, this is basically it. But now that I'm seeing it, because there's like the green, there's sort of this grubby green of the leaves, and there are definitely some like putty rose colors mixed in. But seeing it makes me think, oh, that was my first impulse. Like, something like this is what I thought that I was going to make today. But because I've been doing it, because I've had it, and because I've been working with it, now I want to kind of do something that is not what I expected that I would do. So I'm going to put these aside, and I'm going to try to still follow the brief of building a grungy rose palette, but do something different. Okay, I'm gonna stop here. Right away, I've pulled a tighter edit than I usually do, which is great because I'll be able to swatch all of the contenders and make my decision based on how they're swatching. And I just wanted to note that I was really tempted to pull in, for example, like this shade right here, this shade right here, those are the kinds of things that I usually go for. But because there's such a strong presence of that kind of thing in this palette, like this, that, this, and this, I avoided that. So I really tried to make different decisions. I definitely went darker with what I pulled, and I definitely leaned more into the rose, kind of like this intense histrionic rose, like a slightly more fluorescent kind of rose, or, you know, rich, bright rose, than the kinds of things that would have been my first instinct. And I'm really excited by what I've ended up with here. And I'm so glad I decided to try to push myself outside of my comfort zone, because I never would have picked these colors if I was just going based on my first instinct. Okay, I've grouped them loosely into these 4 categories. Again, I don't have very much space. I really want to challenge myself to fit the final palette into this tiny little thing. So I'm going to have to basically pick like one of each type of thing. Not like I'm just gonna pick one from each of these groups, but breaking them down like this helps me think about the use value of each one in the palette. So this is like a group of bright, strong rose colors, even though they're not all the same finish. 2 of them are more metallic and 2 of them are matte. They all kind of do the same thing in a look. These are the darker colors, and again, one's a matte, one's a metallic, and one is a multi-chrome, but they're going to provide similar kinds of support for an eye look as each other. These are some more neutral mattes. They're a little bit more utilitarian, structural. And then down here, these are like the smudgy, shiny accent shade, more mid-toned accent shades. This is like a pretty dynamic group. They don't really all fit in the same category, and I will probably end up choosing more than one of these. That would be my guess, but we'll see. Maybe I'll end up choosing none of them. Let's get to swatching. So this is an old Juvia's Place shadow that I depotted from a Juvia's Place palette, and I almost never use it. I wasn't actually sure if it was still good, but upon swatching it, I immediately know that I want to include it. It's setting the trend of this being a much different palette than what I expected it to be, and I'm here for it. These 2 are both from the Lila palette, and I didn't really like this one, but I really liked the way this one swatched, the 3rd one. And then this one here is ColourPop Meteorite, and it's a great shadow, but I'm not feeling it. So I'm gonna kick these 2 out. Look at that. That's what we like to see. That's why we do this. That's why we love makeup. Oh my gosh, look at it. I'm gonna swatch these up close for you. Awesome. So I actually love all 3 of these. The first 2 are old Adept singles, ACM 20 and ACD 10. And the 3rd one is, of course, Cleona Kiln. I'm very tempted to keep all of them in, although I know that I can't fit all of them in unless that's it. You know what I mean? Like, unless that's just my palette, and I don't think that that will give me everything I need. So I don't think all 3 of them can stay. And you know, when I'm looking at the swatches here, even though Kiln is really dynamic and this shade from the Natasha Denona Lila palette is a little bit more of a standard shimmer, they are kind of serving the same purpose in terms of value and chroma. And it's weird to say it because, you know, one is really a wild formula, but they kind of are redundant. So I feel like I can choose between them. And I think for the time being, I'm gonna choose Kiln. So I'm gonna kick this guy out. Maybe at the end, if I end up with a palette of all super dynamic shadows and it's not practical, I'll switch them back. But for the time being, Kiln is gonna stay. And I'm also gonna keep this dark matte and let go of this kind of like purplish pink for now. I really like the kind of intense, bright color, but it's not really giving me grungy as much as some of these other things are. Again, it's sort of on notice. We might bring it back at the end, but for the time being, we're starting with these 3. Gotta love a good post-swatch finger. All 3 of these shadows, I feel, just look incredible. Okay, so here are 4 matte shadows that I envision will serve like a practical purpose, one of which I envision will serve a practical purpose. The first one is an old ColourPop shadow called Wait For It. I understand why I thought that it might work, but I think it's not it. And then these second two are both from my custom Lethal palette. So this one is Midway and this one is Catatonic. And I'm really loving the look of Catatonic, even though it's not really rose colored, or if it is, it's sort of like a terracotta rose rather than like this kind of rose that I've been leaning into. I don't know, I really like it. And even though this shade, this matte from the Lila palette, looks like it would suit my palette better, it just doesn't feel fresh to me right now. With this color story, it feels predictable. And I also use this shade from the Lila palette all the time when I'm building my own palette. So I'm gonna kick it out just based on those principles. This ColourPop shade is out as well. And I think I'm gonna go ahead and kick out Midway and keep Catatonic around for a little while and see what happens when it starts coming together. Also a pretty awesome set of fingers full of makeup. I love it. So this one right here, the super shiny one, that's JD Glow Opal. The second one right here is Cleona, what is it? Chandelier? Blaze. The second one right here is Cleona Blaze. And the third one right here is a ColourPop glitter called Indio. I feel like the three of them are kind of competing for the same role in the play. You know what I mean? Like one of them is going to be the light 'em up, blow 'em out of the water shade in my little palette. This last one is another Adept shadow. It's ACD1, and I actually feel like this has potential to be an extremely useful grounding shade in the palette. I already feel like I want to include it. For some reason right now I'm feeling like including a pressed glitter would be kind of a cop-out in this palette. So I'm gonna kick Indio out. And I don't know, Cleona Blaze is much more on theme because Opal, the JD Glow shade, it looks pink in the pan, but it actually has a lot of blue in it. So I'm gonna include Blaze. And then this one, this Adept shade here, it's actually swatching much lighter, much less gritty than I thought it would. Look at the post-swatch finger. I think it can be built up to look like this on the lid, but it's not looking like this on my arm. Yeah, I'm actually not totally sure that I could get it to do on my lids what I want it to do based on the way it looks on my finger. Strangely, I feel like the shade that would do that would be this one that I kicked out from the Lila palette that I said was kind of a dupe for Forge. Because Forge, I don't know, Forge has a similar thing going on, but it's a multi-chrome, so it goes over Crazy Mountain right away, you know what I mean? Rather than staying super grungy like this. Whereas this shade, the third one down, it's like I could build intensity of color with it. Sort of a deep rose, and then I could do other things around it on top of it with the other shadows. I don't know, it's on the chopping block. I feel like maybe I'll swatch these together and see how they are looking, and I'll be able to make a decision based on that, because I can't fit all of these into the little palette, I don't think. First thing I'm going to do though is to go wash off my arm after I give you close-ups of these swatches. Okay, filming the close-ups actually made me want to reconsider some of the ones that I've kicked out. This one right here, this like rich, deep, sort of purpley shade was really popping out at me when I was looking at the monitor while the swatches scrolled past. And so was this one kind of. It's like these brighter roses. From a distance like this, or from the angle at which I am sitting to look down at my arm, they're not really standing out. But when I lift my arm and I look directly at it, the way that you guys are seeing it, oh my gosh, a bunch of them look great. But this one in particular, actually, it's this one in particular that is kind of like vying for a position. And this shade is actually looking a lot better in different light than it is looking in all of this direct light. Like there you can kind of see a little bit more of what it has to offer. Okay, I'm back with a clean arm, and I also think I need to start getting realistic about what can fit into here because I know that I want this, and that's taking up a lot of space, especially when you think about the geometry of the situation. So let's see. Yeah, I think that that's gonna be it. I think 2 are gonna have to go. So let's swatch them all out. This one's in for sure. Ooh, that swatch. Yeah, this one's definitely staying in. Okay, interesting. I'm feeling kind of uninspired by Clionadh Blaze. I usually include some sort of bright, reflective, dynamic, kind of glittery shade to put all over the look and like put on the brow bone, etc., etc. I almost always, or not almost, I pretty much always include a shade like that. And right now I just feel so much more excited about these really rich, sticky, bold colors. And with limited space and knowing that I'm making like a really small palette that's going to have a specific point of view, I think that I might be okay with actually letting that go, and therefore letting go of my ability to, if I'm sticking to just using this palette for an eye look, letting go of my ability to put like a sheer wash of shiny, shimmery, reflective shadow all over my lids. That will definitely push me out of the comfort zone that I've been hanging out in, but I'm okay with it. I'm also feeling kind of inclined to keep this shade in, this one that has been the subject of much discussion, because it's got that like blood red color that I really like, and I'm not that into pink makeup even though I'm building a rose colored palette today, and because I really do want to keep in most or all of these, again these like rich sticky dynamic ones, I feel like having something a little bit less pink and a little bit more red is going to come in handy for me. So I actually want to keep that one in, and that means that the 2 that are left that I'm feeling uninspired by are these 2 mattes at the bottom. And I feel like kicking either one of them out will have pretty specific implications, because if I kick out this one, then, well, I was gonna say it won't really have a shade with which to kind of like deepen the outer corner, but it's so, I guess I could kind of use that one to do that, and I could even use Kiln to do that, although that would be kind of an adventure. It's almost like how much darker of a shadow is it really than these 2, even though it's a matte. I often use slightly satiny or metallic shades to deepen my outer corner. So if I kick this one out, I will be confining the eye looks that I make with this palette to the mid-tone range. But again, that's another thing that will push me outside of my comfort zone. So I think I'd be okay with it. But this one, this shade right here, this one right here, even though it looks kind of rosy terracotta in the pan, when it's swatched out next to all the rest of these, it really stands out as basically being like a shade of orange. So I feel okay with letting that one go. Let's see if all of these guys would fit. It almost seems like there would be room for one more, but I don't think there is. Yeah, if anything would fit, it would be one of these Clionadh shades. I might be able to cram it in, but yeah, I don't like that. I don't like it when they're crammed in so much that they're kind of like popping up. Is this it? Have I done it? Is this gonna be a viable deep rose palette for me? I think I have to swatch it out all by itself to find out. But look how funny this is. These are all the shades that I kicked out. I feel like I just kept all of the deepest and most saturated shades. That's literally exactly what I did. Like if I had lined up the shadows in order from most saturated to least saturated, and I just sliced off the bottom 6, that would be this palette. Yeah, I really like this. This to me implies deep, smoky, intense, shiny eye looks that are colorful, but that can be grungy if I want them to be. You could call it rose, but I feel like it's got much more intensity than the rose makeup that we've seen coming out lately. And in a variety of ways that I've enumerated throughout this video, it pushes me outside of my usual comfort zone. I don't have my crutches here, and I do have some things that I find really exciting, but that I don't usually use. Now, even though I've been trying to make something slightly unexpected, usually when I build a palette like this, and I really want to get good use out of it in the coming weeks, the last thing that I do is I kind of pretend that it's the morning, I'm putting on my makeup, and I'm opening it, and I kind of like go through the paces and I think, how's it going to strike me? When I'm sitting down to do my makeup and I open it, what am I going to think? Is it going to be exciting? Is it going to seem useful? Am I going to be able to use it if I'm in a hurry, or if I'm not feeling like something elaborate, or if I'm not feeling like something colorful? Basically, is it versatile enough? So if I'm sitting down to build an eye look for filming, for example, and I know that I want to wear a really bright cheek or a really bright lip, so I need something pretty simple and quick, and something that I could maybe put all over my lid and it'll be a bit grungy, a bit neutral, but still fit the theme of the palette. Is there something here that would work? And I actually think that this shade right here, this one right here, would work for that. And this shade right here could also work for that. So both of them would create rose-colored looks, you know, looks that are pink in their way, but they would be looks that didn't compete too much with my other makeup and didn't take too long to do and didn't look too effortful. Basically, the question that I almost always ask is, even though this palette was put together with kind of like more dynamic things in mind, more exciting things, does it also offer me what I'm often looking for in a palette, which is just a quick, simple option that results in a kind of makeup look that makes me feel super comfortable and confident? And the answer is yes. So, mission accomplished. This is so different for me. It's going to be so fun to use. And looking at it right here definitely makes me want to do an eye look that I film. I could probably manage to use all 6 of these eyeshadows in a single look. I know a lot of you often ask me to do that. Like, you see this video and then you're like, we want to see you use it on your eyes. Sometimes I'm really excited to do that, and sometimes I just immediately put my new palette into rotation as a workhorse and never really revisit it on camera. But this one is particularly speaking to me, and what it's saying is, Hannah, apply me on camera. So I will try to do that. Keep an eye out. Again, if you aren't subscribed, please do, especially if you want to see that video, because it won't come right away. It'll take me some time to film it and edit it, but it should be up if I manage to do it within the next couple of weeks. That is it. Thank you so much for being here with me and watching this video. And don't forget to take extra good care of yourself today so that you can be the most effective version of yourself as you do your work in the world.